Hey, what's up, guys? Hope everyone's doing good today. Today, I want to discuss a topic that came up in a Bible study that I'm in recently. But before I get started, I just want to reiterate that the purpose of this channel is just to discuss biblical concepts. I'm not trying to preach or teach anything specific. Really, my goal is just to point people back to the Bible. We all have access to the same book. We can read it for ourselves and figure out what it means. But with that being said, the topic that came up was food laws. You know, when did the Israelites or Christians in the Bible go from eating what they considered to be clean food to unclean food? And a lot of people point to Acts 10 when Peter has his vision. You know, God comes down and says, Peter, get up, go forth, kill and eat. And it was all the unclean animals that came down on the sheet or the blanket from heaven. And Peter said, God forbid, I've never eaten anything unclean. And God said, you know, Peter, get up, go forth, kill and eat. Um, so that tells us two things. One, that Peter didn't think that those foods were able to be eaten. And two, since this is the book of Acts, that it didn't happen at the time of the Gospels. It happened sometime after. But if you go and look at the end of Acts chapter 10, Peter doesn't interpret that vision that way. Peter's interpretation of the vision is that we can go and preach the gospel to the Gentiles. He actually reiterates that at the beginning of chapter 11. He says, I was given a vision, God gave me a vision and told me to go preach the word unto the Gentiles. So his interpretation was not that it changed food laws, but that it was for the word of God to be preached to the Gentiles. So there's a couple other places in the New Testament where it talks about food. In First Corinthians, I think it is, 6, I don't know, 6, 8, 10, around there, I think maybe all of them, it talks about sacrificing food to idols. It doesn't say specifically anything about being clean or unclean or what types of food, like we saw in Acts 10, but it just says um, basically don't eat food that's offered to idols. If you eat food and you don't know if it's offered to an idol, then you know essentially you're guilt free. But it doesn't talk about whether or not it's clean or unclean. We also see in Romans 14 there's an argument between whether eating meat or eating vegetarian, if one is better than the other. And Paul said all is clean. I thought he was talking specifically about meat or vegetarian, but it doesn't say anything about like what types of foods, that it was making certain foods clean or unclean or anything like that. I think he was just talking specifically about we have vegetarians, we have people who eat meat, and both options are clean. But if eating meat or drinking wine causes your brother to stumble, then don't do either of those things. And then also in the Gospels, we see where Jesus is being admonished for not washing his hands and keeping what they call the traditions of man. And basically, what Jesus said is like, what he was saying to them is, this is a tradition, not a law. This is not of God, this is of man. But it's not what goes into your mouth that makes you clean or unclean. And he was talking specifically about germs. So I don't see really anywhere in the New Testament where it changes specifically from like eating what they would consider clean according to the Levitical laws, to, you know, and then eating unclean afterwards, or I guess making foods clean. Again, you know, you look at First Corinthians, Romans. I think Mark is when they talk about the washing of hands. It doesn't appear that any of those things were like shifted, but maybe it happened sometime after the Bible was written. I'm not sure. But you know, again, this is just a thought, something that we were discussing and something I wanted to look into a little bit more. So if anybody has any answers or any input, please let me know. And that's it. Thanks again for joining today. Take care, guys.